أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, a second loud salawat. Allah. For the hastening in the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Yesterday we began with the story of Saleh alayhi salam, a prophet that his name is mentioned 9 times in different surahs of the Quran, and in particular the verses that we just recited from Surah Ash-Shams, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of those who purify their souls and how they will reach salvation, and those who don't do so and that they will perish and they will be punished. And in order to prove this point, to make this point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of all of the stories in the Quran, references the story of Saleh and his people Thamud for us. And we started to discuss how the people of Thamud, their civilization was a very special civilization. This was not the type of people who are like the people of our prophet, who lived in the middle of the desert. Maybe they had some tents, maybe they had some camels. When you look at the people who used to live in Mecca, they barely had any crops. They had some cattle and that was it. It was a simple lifestyle. That was not the case with the people of Thamud and the people of Saleh. It's the exact opposite of that, because the Quran tells us that they used to have great palaces, and this was only their home for some times of the year. Other times of the year, they used to have homes in the mountains that they had carved out into the mountains. This level of technology, this level of convenience on one hand, and on the other hand, the long lives that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted to the people of Thamud were 2 elements that made it very difficult for Saleh to call them to come to the right path. And hence Saleh started his prophethood from the ripe and young age of 16, started to speak to his people, called his people to the right path, and they came to him with 2 objections that we discussed yesterday. The first of these objections was that they said, Saleh, we are disappointed in you. We had high hopes and dreams for you. We didn't think you would decide one day to grow up and go against the number 1 tradition of your tribe, which is worshiping these idols that you see around you. And the second objection that they raised to Saleh was that, Saleh, you're just a human being just like us. And both of these objections, there are points that we will have to discuss with regards to them tonight as well. As Saleh continues his speaking to his people, the message he's going to communicate to his people, tonight inshallah we'll continue with this portion of the story. And in order to do so, we'll pose the following questions. Number 1, if someone decides to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and continues on this path multiple days, multiple months, the more signs come his way, he continues on this path. how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring him back into line and put him into harmony with the rest of his creation and the other creatures who are obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Number 2, what does Surah Al-Hijr teach us about the people of Thamud and the people of Saleh? And why is this surah given this name anyways? Where did it find its name from? Number 3, what are the different types of miracles in terms of their recipients, who's receiving the miracle and who the miracle is for? And what difference does it make when a prophet brings a miracle to his people himself versus times like the people of Saleh, where they actually actively ask for a miracle from their prophet? What's the difference between these two? Number 4, how did the people of Saleh challenge him to bring a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And how did he challenge them to bring a miracle from their own idols? And number 5, and finally, why was the camel of Saleh so special in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the person who hamstrung the camel of Saleh and killed the camel of Saleh, why does he call him Ashqal Awwaleen, the most wretched of people, one of the most wretched of people to have ever lived on earth? Tonight, inshallah, we'll delve into these 5 questions with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Saleh came to his people, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought you out from the earth, وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا. This technology that you have, this convenience that you have in your life, I know you might attribute it to yourself. In reality, it's not from you. God gave you this knowledge. God gave you this ability. And he turned to them, he said, فَاسْتَغْفِرُوا. So repent, ثُمَّ تُوبُوا إِلَيْهِ. Ask him for forgiveness, change your path, because إِنَّ رَبِّي قَرِيبٌ مُجِيبٌ. The Lord I believe in, the God I believe in, he is qareeb, he's close. If you call him, he will respond to you. And it's very interesting because slowly you see in multiple prophets, as we're discussing, none of these prophets ever came to their people and said, listen, you all are a bunch of sinning, terrible people, and you better clean this up before you know what happens. This is never their approach. They came, they brought the message of God, but the way they spoke to their people was a very special way. They always used to call their people to come and do tawbah. It's not like they said, yeah, do whatever you want to do, it's okay. I'm non-judgmental, I'm not going to judge anybody. Yeah, do as you wish. That's not what they said. They had a lot to say about what people were doing, yes? But the way they spoke to their people, the way they approached their people, you don't see that arrogance in it that you and I have when we come across people who may not be practicing. So he called to his people, he said, فَاسْتَغْفِرُوا, come, إِنَّ رَبِّي قَرِيبٌ مُجِيبٌ. The Lord I'm talking about, he's not that Lord that you make one mistake and he's angry at you and then you're in trouble and so on and so forth. He is that Lord who's waiting for you to call him. He's close, he will listen to you if you just ask him to come. Never did these prophets come with people who already know what they're doing is a wrong thing. These are people who already know what they're doing is a wrong thing. Never did these prophets come and say, listen, your time's pretty much up. This is your last chance. Hurry up. I don't have too much time for you. There was one prophet who had a little bit of that in him. A little bit of that in him. He only called his people for 30 plus years, only. And that was Yunus, whose story we'll get to inshallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells our prophet, وَلَا تَكُنْ كَصَاحِبِ الْحُوتِ. Don't be like Yunus. You have to have the patience that is worthy of you. So our prophet was on a different level. That's why our prophet says, there's no prophet who was bothered as much as I was bothered. There's no prophet who went through as many trials and tribulations as I went through. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَكُنْ كَصَاحِبِ الْحُوتِ. Don't be like Yunus. Yunus was a prophet himself. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, don't be like Yunus? Because Yunus, instead of his patience being at 110, was at a 99. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the prophet, no, the patience you have to have is even greater than this. So Saleh came to his people, he didn't say, you all are going to burn, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. He said, Inna Rabbi qareebun mujib. You have time, come back and repent. And then he also told his people that, listen, if you decide not to, and your arrogance gets the best of you, and you're going to continue like this, sinning, let me tell you what's going to happen. God's punishment is going to come. Yes? Recite a salawat. Yes. I don't have any extraordinary powers, but that just lined up perfectly. So I had to seize the moment. One more salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He told his people, "Atutrakuna fima hahuna aminin." Do you really think if you decide to continue to disobey God, just keep going, yeah, that God is just going to leave you with all these blessings that you have? God will give you time, but it's not like He can just give you a green light to just keep going and going. Otherwise, what's the purpose of your life if you're just going to keep going like this? So the Quran tells us that when someone sins, there should be alarms going off in his mind. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment can come at any moment. Yes? We want to look at this punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of in the verses of the Quran, and that Saleh is speaking of to his people from a little bit of a different angle. It's a little bit of a more philosophical angle. It's a little bit of a deeper discussion. Because we always say, if you disobey God and you continue like this, at one point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to have enough with you. His punishment is going to come. Fear God, all of this kind of stuff. You should be scared of God, so on and so forth. Yes, this is what we say. In reality, it's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sitting there and He's getting angry at anybody. This is very important. The fear of God is such a misunderstood topic within our communities. Maybe one time we'll have to have a full lecture on it, inshallah. We say fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His punishment might come. When you look deeper into the verses of the Quran, you find that this punishment is not necessarily God getting angry and sending His punishment on people. You look at it from a different angle, you find in reality what is happening here is the following. You are a human being, you are living amongst God's creation with billions of other creatures. Creatures that you see, the plants and the trees and the rain and everything, and creatures that you don't see. There's worms in the ground, there's insects, all of these things that we don't see. Billions of them. Okay. All of these other creatures of God are doing what? They're obeying God. They are in line. They are doing exactly as God is telling them to do. When the bird flies, God told him to fly. When he sits, God told him to sit. When the cow grazes on the grass, he's just obeying God. It's everything. When the snake bites, he's obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what God told him to do. He doesn't have free will. He has to stay in this line. Everyone is moving towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everyone is gathered around Tawheed. God tells them what to do and they do it. That's it. This is what Tawheed is. Okay. Billions of creatures of God in line, doing things properly. And then you decide to stand out of line. So everyone moving towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obeying God, all of this kind of stuff, and then you're like, no, I'm going to go this way. You're out of order. You're out of line. Everything else, its default in this world is to do what? To obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you get out of line. When you get out of line, this world has a natural way of getting this person back into the line. Imagine you get a virus in your body. What happens when a virus comes into your body? Your body starts to fight back. There's fighting that happens in your body. You don't see the fighting that's happening. You only see the ill effects of it, the negative effects of it. What are the negative effects? You feel like you have a fever, you're weak, you can't carry yourself, all of this kind of stuff. In reality, what's happening inside of there's a fight going on. There's a war going on inside of your body. Your body has a natural way of bringing you back to the right path. That is exactly how this world works. When someone gets out of line, this world, the nature of this world, has a way of getting him back in line. The more he goes out of line, the more severe this world has to push him to get him back into line. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put two ways ahead of us, two ways in front of us. Number one, when you get out of line, you can do the smarter thing, the easier thing, yes, the most convenient thing. It's called tawbah. When you get out of line, you can just say, Ya Allah, I'm out of line. I'm going against all of your creation. I am no longer in harmony with trillions of other creatures in this world. So I'm going to get myself in line. So you can do tawbah. This is the easiest way to solve it. Done. Takes 2 seconds. Only thing you have to do is you have to put your foot on that arrogance and push it down a little bit, and then you do tawbah. This is the easy way to get back in line. The good thing is it doesn't come with other symptoms. Easy, done. But someone decides not to do this. He wants to continue down this path, stays out of line. Then this world will have to bring him back into the line. So we say, don't commit this sin because God's punishment will come. From another angle, it's don't commit this sin, don't get out of line because this world will start to now push you back into line. How does this world push me back into line? Sometimes you commit a sin. What happens? All of a sudden your rizq goes down. Your sustenance goes down. How? What happened? This is the world putting you back in line. You're out of order. You're out of line. We have to get you back in line. You commit a sin, all of a sudden your life goes from 30 years to, 22 years, for example. This is the world putting you back into line. You commit a sin, illness comes your way. This is the world putting you back into line. This is not the only reason why these things happen, huh? Sometimes this is the world putting us back into line and into order. If the person, this is where it connects with the story of Saleh. If the person continues like this and he continues to disobey and he goes on and on, there comes a point. Recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You guys can hear me? Yeah? I can barely hear myself. There comes a point where he is so out of line, there's no more hope for him. So this world removes him. This is that punishment that the prophets keep saying it's going to come, the final punishment. When Saleh tells his people, don't continue like this, God's punishment will come. This punishment is going to be different though. It's going to wipe you out. This is this world wiping this person out. Why? Because there's no more getting this person back in line. We've pushed him and he's keep going in his own direction. At one point, he is a foreign element in this world. Everyone else in this world is obeying God. What is this guy doing? He's going out of order. So the world has a way of correcting itself, of purifying itself. You are now a foreign element. You don't belong here. The final punishment comes, these guys are removed. So when Saleh tells his people, do you really think that God is going to leave you here in the midst of these blessings? God's punishment is going to come. It's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na'udhu billah, is emotional. And he sits there and says, oh, you really made me angry now. Here, take this punishment. This is how we do things. It's not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Saleh is saying the world will get you back in order, but it's going to do that with force. And that force is going to be difficult and painful to deal with. The sooner you come back, the easier it will be. If you continue like this, the world will remove you from existence. Because now you are completely foreign to everything else in this world. Because everything else is obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Recite a salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He told them this, and this is what we read in Surah Al-Hijr. Surah Al-Hijr that occurs earlier in the surahs of the Quran is a surah that refers to and gets its name from the people of Saleh, because the area where the people of Saleh used to live was called Hijr, and that is why the Quran refers to them as Ashabul Hijr. So in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't mention Thamud, He doesn't mention Saleh either. These names don't occur. But He says that Ashabul Hijr, the people of Hijr, they denied the message of their prophets. When you continue down the verses, the Quran says this: they continued on their path, we sent our punishment, we removed them from this world. And then the Quran says this, and this is the verse that points to the point I was just making. The Quran says, وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. We did not create this heavens and earth except with truth. Meaning, the foundation of this world is truth. It's obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You decide to get out of line, well, slowly, if it reaches a point where you're completely out of line, you don't belong here anymore. God's not emotional. This is how this world works. We created the heavens and the earth bil-haqq, with truth. You have now become an icon of falsehood. So you don't belong here anymore. You are not in harmony with the rest of creation. This is why Saleh kept going back to his people. This time he went back to them and he said something that you and I might be able to relate to. He said, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَتِيعُونَ. Fear God and obey me, وَلَا تُطِيعُوا أَمْرَ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. And don't listen to the elites. Don't put your head down, whatever they say, whatever they worship, whatever they do. This is exactly what celebrities do nowadays. Something might be very wrong. If one celebrity says, no, this is a good thing, all of a sudden it turns into a good thing. It's magic. There are things, they're very good. If a celebrity says it's bad, all of a sudden what happens? It's bad. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the people of Saleh, وَلَا تُطِيعُوا أَمْرَ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Don't look at this guy, he's famous, he's this, he's that, he lives a glamorous life. Whatever he says, you're going to take it. You have to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have your own path ahead of you. They didn't listen. The Musrifin used to come to Saleh, say, Saleh, you keep saying we're part of the elites. Well, guess what? You're very poor, you have nobody, you live a very modest lifestyle. You have nobody around you. There's no angels that come and take care of you, all of this kind of stuff. So they used to turn to the people of Saleh and say this, أَيَعِدُكُمْ أَنَّكُمْ إِذَا مِتْتُمْ. Is this guy really telling you guys that when you die, then he's going to bring you back out of earth? What a joke. That part's not a part of the verse. Yes? This is my wording. أَيَعِدُكُمْ أَنَّكُمْ إِذَا مِتْتُمْ. Is he really telling you guys that once you die, you're going to go back into earth, then he's going to bring you out of earth, all of this kind of stuff? Is that really what he tells you guys? They continued down this path. They said, listen, let us tell you something. The life that you and I live as human beings is just this. There's nothing after. Who's seen the other world anyways? There's nothing after. It's just here. And over here, we're the elite, we're victorious, so you should listen to us. We're pretty successful. And they're right. Over here, they're successful. So you should listen to us. It reached a point with the people of Saleh, they couldn't take his truth anymore. So the elite came up with a plan. And their plan was, we have to kill Saleh, because he's gone too far. So what did they do? They said, well, if we kill him, his tribe are going to come, his people are going to come, they're going to ask for his blood money, yes? They're going to ask for revenge, so on and so forth. So here's what we'll do. We have 9 tribes. It's very similar to what they tried to do with our prophet, yes? They said, listen, we have 9 tribes. These 9 tribes, from each one of them, one person will come. Saleh, every day, he goes out, every night, he goes out to worship in this place of prayer and worship that he has out of town. It's isolated. One of these nights he's heading out, we're going to get rid of him. And they swore to each other that they would all be a part of this plan. So we're all going to be a part of this plan. Later on, when his family asks what happened, we'll say, we don't know who killed him. We don't know what happened. So they waited. One night, Saleh is going to head out. But before he heads out, look at what the verses of the Quran say. The Quran says these guys got together, the 9 guys got together, they made this plan. They thought they were making this plan in the corner of their room. And the Quran says, وَمَكَرُوا مَكْرًا وَمَكَرْنَا مَكْرًا. They were plotting, they didn't know we're plotting at the same time against them. They sat there, they said, we're going to do this, we're going to get rid of him, it'll be the end of it. Right when they're speaking, the Quran says, we were also plotting against them. This is why the Quran says, in other verses of the Quran, he says, when people come together to plot against us, yes, they're doing their makr, وَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ مَكْرَهُمْ. But their makr is with God. What does that mean? That means like they're plotting, but their plot is right in front of God. If you play football, there's a huddle. Right? They come back to huddle, right? Imagine they put a mic in the huddle. They announce it to the whole stadium. You're going to run here, he's going to run here, we're going to throw, we're going to fake to this guy, then we're going to throw to this guy. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. These guys sit there, they don't know, we're listening, we know exactly what their makr is. In fact, not only do we know, we're also plotting against them while they're makr. What's the lesson for you and I? The lesson for you and I is when the thought of a sin comes to your mind, and you sit there and you say, I'm going to do it like this, and I'm going to do it like that. This is plotting against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You sit there and say, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to break her heart. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to share his secrets. Sometimes people come together. When he comes, don't be kind to him. Don't be nice to him. We're going to get rid of him. These things happen. These things in families happen. These are real stories. When that cousin comes, now we're going to do like this. And they think they're whispering to each other. Hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Baba, when you're doing your makr, I'm doing makr against your makr right now. Not only do I know it, I'm planning against you right now. This is a lesson for you and I. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his sins are of two types. There's a type of sin where you didn't plan it from before. Just in the moment, shaitan got the best of you. Yes? In the moment, shaitan whispers in your ears. This is the excuse that Ali ibn Abi Talib makes in Dua Camel. Yes? He says, Ya Allah, shaitan got me. He was in the right place at the right time. فَغَرَّنِي بِمَا أَهْوَى. He got the best of my desires and I ended up committing these sins. Yes? That's one type of sin. Then there's the other type of sin. No, you planned it from before. You thought to yourself, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and then I'm going to do that. This one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is plotting against you. The Quran says. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is plotting it. The other one, you can go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Ya Allah, in the moment. But this one, this is the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that comes. So they made this plan. They all swore to each other, we're definitely going to do this. So Saleh head out of the city. These people said, we also need an alibi. So we're going to make it look like we're traveling. Except when we go out of the city, we're not going to go too far. We're going to go around where Saleh comes to do his worship. We're going to be waiting for him. And the only thing that the narration tells us is when Saleh came out this night, he went for worship. On his way there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent from the mountains rocks that crushed these 9 individuals. وَمَكَرُوا مَكْرًا وَمَكَرْنَا مَكْرًا. They had their plan and plot. We also had our plot and our plan. It's a big lesson in this. Saleh came back to his people. His people said, why are you here? Something was supposed to happen last night. He said, I don't know. They left him. Saleh went back to his people, called his people for a number of years. He started at the age of 16. The narration in Al-Kafi says now he reached the age of 120. So many years calling his people. Finally came to a point, he said, my people, I have something that I want to tell you. He said, what is it? Because they were all ready to get rid of Saleh. He said, listen, this is the final showdown. I have a suggestion for you. I've been calling you guys for many years. You guys don't come, so on and so forth. Here's my suggestion. We're going to do a challenge. You have the opportunity to ask my Lord for a miracle. But I have to have an opportunity to ask your lords for a miracle as well. Your idols, I have the opportunity to ask them as well. They said, Saleh, this is very good. We are tired of you. And they said, Saleh, if your Lord listens to us, we'll believe in you. That's it. End of it. And if he doesn't, well then great, then you can't say anything anymore. We move on with our life and we'll be done. Yes? He said, fine, come. They came. The narration says they had 70 idols. And from those 70 idols, they used to bring food in front of them. They used to give them food, water, so on and so forth. Even when they wanted to eat food, they would come and eat in the presence of the idols. This is part of their ceremony they used to do. So Saleh came to them. They said, Saleh, you can go ahead first. Ask our idols for whatever you want. So Saleh turned to the big one. He said, this big one, what is his name? They told him his name. He said, Ya Fulan, called the name of the idol. Speak to me. Respond to me. It's just silence. Nothing happens. So he went one by one to these other idols, called them. Nothing. The people came back to Saleh. They said, no, give us some time. We need some private time with our idols. They told Saleh to go away. Saleh went away. They came back to their idols. They started to plead to their idols. They said, this is the moment you guys have to speak. This is not the part where you're quiet. This is the part where you say something. because this is the ultimate showdown, this is the challenge, all of it. We don't want you to embarrass us today. So you should speak. So the narration says they started to mourn in the presence of their idols. Yes? Asking their idols. Saleh came back. They said, Saleh, come back. Same thing. Same thing happened. Nothing. Silence. Saleh looked at them. He said, listen, most of the day is gone. Do you have something you want to ask my Lord for? You want to ask something from my Lord? Now, pause here, because technically when you see your idols not responding, you already know the truth. Yes, the truth has already become clear to you that your idols, there's not much to them anyways. They knew the truth, but they went a bigger step ahead. And that was now that they were going to ask their prophet for a miracle, and they were going to ask their prophet for a very specific miracle. Very specific miracle. Why is this important? Because the miracles that God sends to us are of different types. There are miracles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to people before they are believers or disbelievers, the initial miracle. There are miracles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to the believers to solve some of their problems. Like Musa sent man and salwa, the foods, to his people so that they would have food. There are miracles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to the believers to fulfill a certain promise to them. There are miracles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to the believers to increase their faith. There are miracles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to the disbelievers to bring them back to the right path. Like the miracles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to Fir'aun. Yes, the frogs came and the lice came and the blood and so on and so forth. And then there are miracles where the disbeliever takes the initiative himself. And he says, oh Allah, send me a miracle, but not based on your choice. I'm going to choose what type of miracle you send to me. This miracle has pros and cons. The pro to it is you get exactly what you were asking for. The con to it is this one, if you disobey, it's done. Because this is the ultimate miracle. See, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends His own miracles, you didn't have a choice. So you might sit there and say, I don't like this miracle, it's like this, it's like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might be a little bit patient with you. But if you're the one who's specifying what type of miracle you want, then you've just raised the stakes. Now the responsibility has gone up. You know where else this happened? This happened in the story of Isa alayhi salam. His own people, his Hawariyun, came to him. They said, Isa, send us a tablecloth of food from heavens, yes? And Isa said, Ittaqullah, fear God. They said, what do you mean, fear God? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I can send this food to them, but if I send this one and then they disobey, the punishment is severe. And sometimes you and I might wonder, why doesn't God send us bigger miracles, bigger signs? Isn't it easier for God if I'm just walking down the street, all of a sudden an angel comes by me? Yes? It says, oh, mashallah, you're fasting today. You know, all this. God sent me, yes, to send you His message. Can't God do that? God can do that. You know the problem with it is? One of the problems is if that happens and then you disobey, it's over. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want it to be over for you. He wants to give you as many times as He can. This is out of His mercy. So they came, they said, Saleh, yes, we want a miracle. We want a very specific miracle. He said, what is it? They called 70 of their people. The Qawm of Thamud in the thousands. They called 70 of the elite. 70 of the elite came. They said, Saleh, not here. We want a miracle. It's so specific, has to happen at a specific place. He said, fine, what is it? He said, let's go to that mountain. Okay, they went to the mountain. This is number one. They came close to the mountain. They said, Saleh, your Lord, you say He can do anything, yes? And Saleh said, Salu ma shi'tum. Ask for anything you want. He can do whatever you want. He said, what we want from you is we want you to bring out a camel from this mountain. But just not any camel. It has to be a she-camel, has to be a female. This is number one. Number two, the hair on it has to be red. Number three, the skin has to be closer to pink. Number four, it has to be full of fur and hair. And number five, it has to be a certain size. Send us a camel that's like this and like that and like this from this mountain. So what did Saleh do? Pause. If they ask you for this, if you're a prophet of God, they ask you for this, what do? You say, yeah, it's not a big deal. I'll make it happen any second. But this is the humility of a prophet. Saleh turned to them. He said, you've asked for something very difficult for me, but very easy for my Lord. I'm a human being. I'm just like you guys. I can't do any of this stuff. I'm not like some angel or something like that. I'm a human being just like you. I answer to him. I will get you what you have asked for, but it's not me, huh? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the humility that a prophet has. You and I would sit there and say, yes, you asked for your challenge, get your challenge. Here you go. But a prophet, every moment, he's looking up. Say, miracle? Can they have their miracle? So the narration says before he gave them their miracle, he prayed 2 rakat salat. This salat that every prophet told us to do. Every prophet with a sharia, Nuh onwards, every single one of them. Salat, 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 salat. Did Saleh stop there in that moment and say, it's a little difficult right now. Let's skip the salat for today. We're traveling. The airline doesn't let us. It's okay. Well, in the airport, do wudu and pray. People are going to look at me weird. Let me just move on with it. Did he say that? He did 2 rakat salats. He said, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to answer to your dua and your request. So the narration says the mountain started to tremble and it started to shake, and cries were heard from this mountain, and it started to crack open, and before they could see anything, they saw the head of the camel heading out, and they saw a full camel, a camel that was 10 months pregnant already. It's another condition that they had added to Saleh. You'd assume you'd be done, yes? They said, Saleh, now we want him. You said he's pregnant, yes? Have the baby come out. The delivery, yes? Camel delivered the baby. The baby ran around this camel. The baby stayed with this camel, the calf. Stayed with this camel. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, inshallah. Stayed with them. So Saleh said, is there anything else you're asking for? They said, no, we're done. Let's go tell our people that you are truly a messenger of God. And the narration says when they started to head out and move from the mountain, by the time they got back to the village, out of the 70 elite, 64 said, you know what, this was magic. He did magic on us. He did something to our eyes. This miracle happened. And when someone says it was magic, they completely close the doors. How can you prove something's not magic? It's almost impossible. So the narration says out of the 70 elite, 64 by the time they got back to the village. What is the lesson in this for you and I? Brothers and sisters, you and I always sit there and say, if only I saw this miracle, if only I saw that miracle, if only God showed me this. And God is telling us through the verses of the Quran, if you don't obey me, your arrogance will grow and grow and grow. It will reach a point, even if you see a camel coming out of the mountain directly, by the time you get back to your village, you'll disobey. The miracles that God has already given you, you act upon. Do I act upon them? We don't. Ya Allah, show me something else. He's shown you a lot already, and you don't do it. And if you continue down this road, and if I continue down this road, the arrogance of the human being will reach a point where he sees God's greatest miracles and still he says, no, there's something wrong with this. I'm going to continue down this path. When this camel came to the people of Saleh, Saleh then increased the miracle as well. He let this camel stay with them. So every day they see the living, walking miracle of God amongst them. And with the camel, the calf, the baby calf as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a deal with them. But Saleh told them, if you break this deal, God's punishment is going to come. God's punishment is going to come means what? Means this world will now then remove you totally, because you're totally foreign to everything else that's living in this world. He said, this camel that has come, this camel, one day it's going to eat from the water and drink from the water. One day you guys will drink from the water. But he sweetened the deal even more than that. He said the days that it doesn't eat from the water, or the days that it's eating from the water and you can't eat from the water, it will have another blessing for you. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing all the miracles. But then that means if you disobey this one, what happens? Then the punishment immediately comes. What happened to the people of Saleh? How patient was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with them? Inshallah, that we will leave for next, I believe it will be Friday, inshallah. I believe Thursday is the birth of our second Imam, inshallah. Friday, we'll continue with the story of Saleh, inshallah. I know we had 2 nights in the calendar for the story of Yunus, but I think we'll have to do 1 night for the story of Yunus, inshallah, and 3 nights for the story of Saleh, inshallah. Let's take a moment to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for all of your marhumin and marhumat, especially the marhumin and marhumat of the sponsors of tonight's program, with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allah.